I love idle games. I've been hooked ever since I collected my very first cookie in my very first idle game, Cookie Clicker. But the more I played these games, the more I noticed things that, in my opinion, could be improved. So here is a list of 5 things I felt were missing in other incremental games, which eventually led me to create my own, Get a Little Gold. By the way, trying to implement the last one almost ruined the release on Android, so make sure to stick around until the end if you want to hear how that happened. Luckily, I still managed to release Get a Little Gold. It's free and I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to check it out. So what are these 5 reasons that motivated me to start developing my own idle incremental game nearly 12 years ago? Reason number 1. The lack of an end goal. Okay, collecting cookies is fun. Actually, I love doing it. But is there any goal beyond just reaching ridiculously huge numbers? By the way, I love ridiculously huge numbers, so there's nothing wrong with them. But still, is there anything else? Is there any specific number I should aim for? That's how I came up with an idea of challenges in Get a Little Gold. Actually, when you start the game, you know precisely how much gold you need to collect. 1 million. Hence the name 1 million challenge. Completing a challenge in Get a Little Gold acts as a first and most basic layer of prestige. The player loses all their gold but earns some bonuses. And it's not just a new currency that boosts your profits. You also get powerful artifacts and amulets that boost your stats, new upgrades that become available during the next challenge, and even new types of buildings that significantly increase your gold production. By the way, the faster you reach the target gold amount in Get a Little Gold, the better loot you will receive. And for those players who just want unlimited gold, the Endless Challenge is still available. Today you'll find challenges in nearly every incremental game, but when I started working on Get a Little Gold back in 2013, I swear I couldn't find a single idle game that had challenges in it. So maybe Get a Little Gold was the first idle incremental game that introduced the feature that has become almost essential nowadays. Can you recall any idle incremental games that had challenges back in 2013? Let me know in the comments. Reason number 2. Unlimited clicking. Unlimited clicking might sound like a good thing, but let me explain why it actually can be a problem. In almost any incremental game that involves clicking, whether it's Clicker Heroes or the already mentioned Cookie Clicker, you'll notice that while clicking is the only way to earn your first resources, it quickly becomes obsolete, giving way to more passive methods of generating income. For example, take a look at Cookie Clicker. Here, my passive income is almost 32 million cookies per second, while my active income is just 1 million cookies per click. That's 30 times less. But why is that? Why would the developer make the core mechanic almost irrelevant? The answer is simple. Because without limitation, it would quickly become too powerful and could even break the game or, at the very least, ruin the fun. Think about it. If there's no cap on how many times per second player can click, then their income entirely depends on how fast they can click. Or, more realistically, how fast their auto-clicker can click. And now the simplest way to deal with this problem is to significantly reduce the rewards from active clicking. But what if I want clicking to remain relevant? Well, in that case, I guess I need some better solution than just nerfing the production. For example, adding some kind of cooldown to clicking, meaning there's no reason to use auto-clicker. Moreover, by implementing a cooldown, we unlock a bunch of creative possibilities to play with it. Special skills, upgrades and power-ups can significantly reduce the duration of cooldown, making clicking the vital part of the overall game strategy. For instance, the initial 5-second cooldown can be reduced to half a second or even less if the player knows what they're doing. However, while the idea to implement cooldown sounded brilliant on paper, at least for me, I'd be lying if I said it went smoothly. On the contrary, it became one of the most questionable decisions I've made. At the same time, the core audience of Get a Little Gold seems to have fallen in love with the cooldown mechanic once they understood how much it adds to the game. So after all, I'm happy with how it turned out. Reason number 3. Flat prestige and prestige currency mechanics. Prestige, a special mechanic often used in idle games that allows players to reset their progress in exchange for a boost on their next playthrough, is one of my favorite aspects of idle games. The beginning is often the most fun part of every idle game, and being able to replay it over and over again each time with increased power and speed is a real blessing. For instance, the first completion of the Million Challenge in Get a Little Gold might take nearly 1 hour if you are playing actively. But with all the boosts you earned during this first completion, your next playthrough or second one will take you probably 20 minutes or something like that. And once you reach a mid-game with all the hero skills and special abilities unlocked, you'll be crushing it in less than 1 second. However, when I started working on Get a Little Gold in 2013, most idle games I knew either didn't have the prestige system at all, like a dark room or candy box, or they had a very basic one that only increased production based on how much prestige currency you own, like Cookie Clicker at that time. In Get a Little Gold though, not only do you earn prestige currency, green shards, for completing challenges, but you also get artifacts, amulets, unlockable upgrades, and even new buildings like Mine, Pit, Moonbase or Intergalactic Corporation, for example, depending on how quickly you complete each challenge. Also, I believe Get a Little Gold was the first game introducing multiple layers of prestige. Look, when you complete challenges really fast, you gain inactive shots, but they don't do anything on their own. To make them useful, you need to activate them. And that means going through the second layer of prestige, giving up everything, your newcomer artifacts, amulets, upgrades, unlocked buildings, even the global skills you learned so far, in exchange for red shards. Now, red shards not only boost your gold production directly, but they also serve as a main currency for nearly everything in the game. You use them to craft and upgrade mascots, learn hero skills, buy attempts in various game modes, and so on. By the way, speaking of different game modes, that brings us to the reason number 4 why I decided to create my own idle incremental game. Multiple game modes with unique objectives and rewards. I've already mentioned that the core gameplay of Get a Little Gold revolves around gold challenges, where your main objective is to collect a specific amount of gold in the shortest time possible. At the same time, if you are more into the classic idle experience, you can choose endless mode and play at your own pace for as long as you want. What I haven't mentioned yet is that after your first activation, 2 additional modes become available: chess challenges and the golem challenge. These introduce an entirely new gameplay mechanic: combat. Chess challenges are the main source of mascots and mascot parts that can permanently and significantly boost your gold producing buildings. They also have a small chance to drop extremely powerful and permanent artifacts that increase your stats forever. The Golem Challenge, on the other hand, is the main source of hero experience, which, surprise surprise, is needed to level up your hero and learn hero skills. Finally, the last but not least, reason number 5 why I decided to create my own idle incremental game. the lack of multiplayer elements in other incremental games. Remember how I said that adding a cooldown to clicking was my most questionable decision? Well, forget about that. Because the decision to add an online component and build a custom server for Get a Little Gold completely from scratch turned out to become even more controversial. Not only did I spend over a year learning server programming and building my own server for the game, but I also received a ton of hate from the players when the server crashed several times in the first few hours after the game release. And that's after nearly a year of testing. So instead of finally getting a rest I had been looking forward so badly, I jumped right back into fixing the server until it became stable. But the damage had already been done. I can't help but think how many players I lost due to those crashes, especially on day one when the initial boost from the Google was on its peak. With that said, I still believe that it's interaction between people that makes nearly any game so much more enjoyable and fun. I remember countless evenings playing my favorite MMORPG Lineage 2. And to this day, even at 41, whenever I hear the Dion theme, I'm instantly transported back to some of the happiest memories of my past. That's why, despite all the downsides and even the lost players, I don't regret the decision to add an online element to Get a Little Gold. I'm continuing to work on the multiplier mechanics, and I strongly believe that once I implement everything that I planned, the game will become simply better. I'd be really happy if you gave Get a Little Gold a try and shared your thoughts in the comments. The link is in the description. For now though, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.